I can decide who I want there. I can decide where I want to have my baby. Like, I don't have to have anyone dictate to me how I want to have a birth.
Yeah.
In fact, the doctor would not enter my bedroom unless I gave them a permission. And so just their bedside manner was completely different.
Yeah.
I just felt fully in control the entire time. So what good is it for us to have a longer lifespan, but we're in poor health? And that's where I feel like women can have the advantage, where women can benefit the most out of longevity medicine, and where women should be leading the way.
Welcome to the Health Insights Podcast. In this episode, we're joined by Alejandra Sol Garcia, a dedicated health practitioner and advocate for holistic wellness. Sol shares her empowering journey of choosing home births for her children and how those experiences shaped her belief in the body's ability to heal. She discusses the challenges she faced with her children's health, including severe eczema, and how she turned to homeopathy as a powerful healing tool. Sol emphasizes the importance of mindset and health, the role of individualized care, and the significance of understanding one's unique health journey. This show is brought to you by Thea Health, dedicated to empowering individuals to take control of their health and well-being. Visit theahealth.ai to learn more. All right, let's dive into today's enlightening conversation.
Miss Garcia, welcome.
Thank you so much. This
You're
is
very-
awesome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you. So I wanted to start this podcast with, there's a lot of health feats that people do, but I think top of the chain is having a home birth with a child,
Yeah.
let alone 3.
Oh, yeah.
Can you walk us through? I really want to start there because I really want to understand, like, was there specific things you did to prepare your body for a home birth? You know, there's lots of complications, and it's not common in the modern day to do so, right? So I wanted to dive in a little bit there because I think that's like a huge health feat for anybody to do. Obviously, I'm a guy, so I don't personally resonate with it, but I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
So I'd love to just kind of understand, what was your thought process? How did you think about it? How did you plan for it? And then was it what you thought it would be? Different, overwhelming one way or the other, or underwhelming?
Yeah, I would say in one word, I think it's probably the most empowering thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of got to that point of making the decision to have a home birth is just talking to all the women in my family. And I realized that after interviewing my aunts, my grandmothers, my mom, my mother-in-law, what was your birth like? What was that process like? Who was there for you? What was your experience, first child, second child, whatever. My grandmother's one of 11. Many of my aunts have 6 children. One of my aunts has 11. I was like, dang, we're all good at this. Yes. I'm like, we're pretty good at this.
So you're like, genetically, I know I can
like,
do this.
Okay, I definitely don't want 11, but, okay. So just looking at the family history and realizing, wow, I can decide who I want there. I can decide, where I want to have my baby. I don't have to have anyone dictate to me how I want to have a birth.
Yeah.
So that was realization number 1. Realization number 2 was that every woman before my mom had had a home birth. My heritage is Mexican. I'm first generation in Mexico. And my mom had twins, so I was like, okay, hopefully I don't have twins, because then, probably. But it skips a generation, so I'm like, okay, low risk of having twins.
Yeah.
So that was another. I think that's what tipped me over, is the realization that everyone, like, my body's designed for this, and also too, I didn't want to be pushed on a schedule. I know my local hospital was a research hospital. So you have people going in and out at all hours of the night.
Yeah.
So the space isn't yours. And I that was just really like sealed the deal for me. I'm like, I do not want to have a home, like a birth in the hospital where, I have a higher, potentially, they're going to want to give me drugs or,
Yeah.
because the doctor has a timeline, they have a schedule, they have their own routines. And I said, no, it's my show, basically.
Right.
Yeah. And I want it to run my way. And then luckily I was super blessed that the doctors that attended all three of my births, one was a founder of the largest home birth practice in the Midwest. They're no longer around. And this founder, he's both a lawyer and a doctor. And he attended my most difficult birth, which was my son. It was the longest, and labor. And yeah, big Italian guy. He's like, we're going to get this baby. I'm like, thank you. Because he was saying, like, if this baby doesn't come out, by noon this morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dang. And I was exhausted, of course. But yeah. So
Super cool.
these doctors just focused on home births.
Yeah, that's amazing. So walk me through, obviously the first phase was all my ancestors did it this way, and so that therefore I can too, which was like the number one thing was, okay, I have belief that I can do this. Nowadays, I think it's more and more common that if somebody decides to do their home birth, they have all these contingencies, like I'm going to have a pool indoors so it's easier so I can sit in it. I'm going to have a doula. I'm going to have etc. Right? Like, did you plan for those things or those considerations?
Yeah, because we on the staff were some midwives, and even in the aftercare, I tried the water. It just made me nauseous. But of course I had long births, so everybody's different.
Right.
So it didn't really, help for me, but just being able to be in my own environment and be able to walk and move my body, do anything that I wanted. Yeah. In fact, the doctor would not enter my bedroom unless I gave them a permission.
Yeah.
And so just their bedside manner was completely different.
Yeah.
I just felt fully in control the entire time.
Very cool. I think that leads me to, you feel like you're in control today as well. And did those experiences really shape the rest of your life in terms of how you look at your health and how you look at, I know you're a provider and you help other people, right? So did those births, or maybe even before that, did you always have that belief that you're in control, that you got this? Or did they make you feel even more empowered?
Yeah, I think I felt even more empowered. Yeah. And I guess a little backstory. I was in the Air Force. I attended the Air Force Academy. So I kind of learned everything. Like, I never want to be told what to do again in my life. So it's like I went the opposite. Like, I'm always going to be in charge of whatever I do. And but yeah, definitely the home births just made me more empowered, and knowing that I can trust myself, my instinct, what I need.
Awesome. I know you had multiple children that had illnesses. I want to dive into that a little bit. It got to the point where you were putting, I believe it was socks on your son and holding his hands because he had all these issues, eczema, etc.
Yeah, severe.
Talk me through, what that was like, what it felt like, and how did you approach healing a child it's not your body, but obviously somebody you deeply care about on every level, right? It came from you. So what was that? Give me that thought process a little bit. How did you approach it? What were some of the steps that you took?
I was super shocked that my first two children were born with severe eczema. My first child, my daughter, like, she was basically born with a little dry patch. Yeah. And somehow she outgrew it after she turned 1 year old. But yeah, now I look back, I'm like, wow, she was colicky. Now that I look back, I'm like, yeah, her gut was not probably well developed, even though I breastfed exclusively for all of them, and, ate whole foods and all the best diet, but there was no family history of eczema. Yeah. And, this is like over 20 years ago. And I was just shocked, that they had such severe eczema. And then my son, he was the one who had the most severe eczema. And it was actually pretty, it was unbelievable how the eczema came down within 4 weeks. It started with cradle cap, and then it slowly went down and dried out his skin. And he had the open sore wet eczema. So his skin would ooze a honey discharge, honey colored discharge. And when I would nurse him, that fluid, that discharge would rub on my belly and make me insanely itchy.
Oh, wow.
So I had an idea of what he felt like. And so this happened. He was born perfectly fine, but at about 2.5 months is when it blew up out of nowhere. And, my natural doctors was like, oh, just give him probiotics. Probiotics was the only tools that we had at that time.
Yeah.
And then luckily, my mother-in-law, who was actually, she had been a nurse and she was looking to become a doctor. She was in training. And she said, why don't you look up a homeopath? And I had no idea what that was. I just Googled it, found someone in my town, just set up first appointment. And he got treated constitutionally. And within 4 months, he was already balanced. But we got rid of the dog, stopped using any kind of cleaners, moved out. My biggest worry was that he would get an infection because his skin wounds were open. This is 90% of his body is just like, I couldn't even kiss his face. We couldn't go anywhere out, like just in nature, but we couldn't go to the mall or the grocery store, none of that, because the cleaners were too strong and he would just flare up instantly just in the environment. And when I tested him, he was allergic to everything. He couldn't touch red meat. He would flare up just touching it. And so I knew that I did take him to a pediatrician, and he wanted to vaccinate him. And I asked him, but isn't there eggs? All of this stuff he's allergic to? I can't imagine how his immune system is going to handle another foreign substance. So I just ended up walking out. I didn't even pay for that consultation. I'm like, I gotta figure this out. But the homeopath just stabilized his health within 4 months, and he could start eating foods again. And the craziest thing for me was that this pediatrician told me it's my fault that he had such severe allergy because I'm eating everything that I'm, whatever diet I have.
Yeah.
And I'm nursing him, and that's my fault. That's why he has so many severe food allergies. Even though, I thought breastfeeding him was the best thing for his immune system.
Right.
And so, I just knew I had to go all in, and he recovered beautifully. I told everyone around me, like, as soon as he healed up, because it was just a night and day difference.
Amazing.
The recovery. And then I continued to raise my kid. I learned all of my kids and used homeopathy as my main mode of handling my kids' health and illnesses.
So it's really interesting, right? Because congratulations. I know that was a hard time and it was probably a long time ago, but obviously looking back until you're already emotional about, it's your child, they're brand new, you want the best for them. And starting that way is always difficult. Talk to me about homeopathy. I think a lot of people don't even know what that is, that don't even know that exists, don't know that they can go there. I'm sure you felt similarly.
Yeah.
So can you unpack for us a little bit? What is homeopathy, and what were the strategies implemented through this type of medicine that helped where others couldn't?
Got it. So homeopathy is over a 200 years system of medicine developed by a German doctor, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. And he was actually a researcher. And the biggest thing about classical homeopathy to me is that they study healthy people. So you take a healthy person, they take a remedy, and they start developing symptoms of the illness that it cures. So one simple example is, when you chop an onion, right? The remedy is called allium cepa, which is the red onion. And when you chop it, what symptoms do you get? Right? You start tearing, your nose gets runny. Well, allium cepa is a basic remedy for cold and flus, actually, even allergies too, but with those marked symptoms, those keynote symptoms. The other great thing about homeopathy that I just was blown away by is this concept of the vital force. It's analogous to Chinese medicine qi, and we all have vital force, the life force inside of us. And to me, it's just a beautiful philosophy of how the body's made to heal when you give it what it needs. And so that's homeopathy in a nutshell. It's, you can take any natural element in nature and create a homeopathic remedy. And people confuse it with herbals or other medicine because it's actually super diluted doses of the substance of like onion or anything. And so it's going to come from the mineral kingdom, the animal kingdom, and I think there's one more. Mineral, animal, I'm missing one. I'm drawing a blank right now, but and
Plant. Is it plant?
Sorry, thank
no
you.
worries.
Yeah, plant, animal, and mineral kingdom.
Yeah.
And the two ways that it differs from herbals, or because they share the same plants, for example, is that it's super diluted. There's not even one Avogadro's number of the original molecule. And that's one of the reasons why they say, oh, there's nothing to these remedies. It's placebo. There's nothing to it. But that's the power of homeopathy, is that the more diluted the remedy is, the stronger the potency. So this is kind of like, science hasn't wrapped their head around that. There's, nothing that people can relate to in terms of that or can explain that. The other thing is the remedies are prepared with succussion, which is vigorous shaking. And that's how the memory of the original element that the remedy is made from, the essence, the marker of that remedy, gets expressed in the water that it's diluted. So pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's very amazing. I've had a homeopath before, so I'm familiar with the experience.
Yeah.
In your opinion, so actually let me unpack this a little bit. All medicine, plants, and I'm including Western medicine and pharmaceuticals, everything comes from compounds or plants.
Correct.
From one way or the other, right? And I think you kind of nailed it, which is like the dosage and extraction process, and then how it's taken or handled or put into the body is where everyone differs. So if it's a pill, you can't really say it's a drug, right? Because it has to be administered in a way into the bloodstream, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why do you think that there's pockets of people who would completely dismiss homeopathy and call it a scam, etc.? I'm using harsh words on purpose just to get the point across that there's a visceral reaction sometimes to these things. And you're somebody that had an overwhelmingly positive experience, not only yourself, but obviously with your most important people in your world, which are your children, right? Do you have an opinion, or you've been in the coaching provider hemisphere for a while now, and you help other people get healthy? And so what is it about? Is it just polarity? Is it just tribalism? Like, where do you think this contention comes from, and willingness to not even look at it and just say this is just completely BS versus, this drug is great or this supplement is great and the drug sucks? Like, everybody has this is better than that. And so how do we get here, and where do you think it comes from?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think for a lot of people, it's fear of what they don't understand. Fear of it's so outside of the box of like, what they understand medicine is, what they understand how science works. It's like telling someone, oh, gravity doesn't work that way. It doesn't pull you down. It actually pulls you up. Like that would be like, that's insane. That's quackery. That's not how things work. And so there's underlying that, not understanding, because it doesn't fit the framework with which they understand everything else, is fear of the unknown, fear of like, but then that everything that they do know, think they know they would have to now question, right? Because it doesn't fit their framework. And so it's kind of like this concept that's outside the box that people aren't willing to go there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I think that goes like people hate on supplements, other people hate on drugs, other people hate on, there's always pockets of people. And I do believe that if you're trained in a certain way, it's hard for you to go back on that. Cause you're like, I don't want to know that 5 years of what I thought was right is not right, and like I've heard this from multiple doctors where they're like, I feel guilty if I learned that I was wrong for 30 years of treating a patient. And I can empathize with that, right? I'm like, imagine you've been telling your patients the wrong things for 30 years, and now you're like, I was the reason that this person might actually be sick. That's a hard pill to swallow, even though your intention was good. I don't think there's a doctor on earth, maybe there's outliers that are not trying to help somebody, but I think this is where people don't have a lot of understanding, right?
Yeah. Another reason too, I think specific to our US society, is because it's highly personalized. So when my kids had chicken pox, each child got a different remedy. So it's not so easy, just give them this for that.
Right.
It's so highly individualized. So your observational skills have to be on point. Your questions for selecting the right remedy, there is a lot of skill to it. It's both a science and an art, classical homeopathy. So it's not a quick fix. But when you get one great story I have is...
Yeah, please share.
Yeah. So, these childhood diseases, chicken pox, is one great example.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore. How people, those used to be normal to have childhood illnesses like that, chicken pox. So what I experienced in my family, I was homeschooling all of them. So I was with them every day. What I experienced after they got through the chicken pox virus, even though they had different degrees of, one kid didn't have fever completely, or another kid had more pox and had some mild itching, and my other kid had like nothing, just barely a couple pox. They experienced it at different levels. They all had different remedies, but all three of them, after the chicken pox was done, they're learning, their cognitive function, their reading, everything, like just a huge jump. And I'm always looking for more research on this, but it's kind of like their body got a reset.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Like to this day, I have journals. I had a journal for each kid.
Yeah.
And basically every time I gave a remedy, I would record what was going on, which remedy, how did it work, how long they were my science experiments is how I treated it.
Yeah.
And so it was an incredible learning journey too.
That's very interesting. I'd love to dive a little bit more into that. It feels like was your first exposure in terms of coaching and analysis, in terms of health metrics with the kids? Was that like where you basically learned the ropes a little bit?
I learned to look beyond my observational skills. One, because they're babies. They were so they couldn't just tell me their symptoms.
Right.
So definitely observational skills. Everything from like the symmetry of the face, the flushing, the way their posture. What you focus on is what is normal for them and what has changed.
Yeah.
That's the biggest clues. and observational skills at the way you ask questions and just looking at, what's normal for them and what has changed. Because it's so, again, individualized, personalized medicine.
Yeah. I think that's a good segue to, I think one of your marketing messages or how you position yourself is, I'm not diagnosing, I'm observing your health and then actioning things based on my observations, which you just kind of mentioned and talked to. Can you expand on what does observing health mean? Is it, I'm looking at your symptoms, but I'm also looking at nonverbal cues. I'm looking at health metrics, but also soft things that you're telling me in between. Could you just unpack that for us a little bit so people know what is observing health versus diagnosis?
Yeah. So because everyone's unique, your health is as unique as your thumbprint. I ask people in my intake, my thorough intake and initial assessments, what is normal for you? What are the foods that give you the most energy? Which foods, do you stay away from, and why do you think that is? And they may have different reasons, oh, I get this funny head sensation, fuzzy head sensation, or it just feels weird in my mouth. Or so diving into those little details, because the body, people know what they're drawn to and what they kind of avoid. And so I kind of try to tease that out. What is it about that? And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that's an oxalate family or that's a nightshade family, doing that kind of thing, connecting the dots. But yeah, diet, even sleep position, the amount of hours of sleep that they need and how many hours they think is quality sleep, and, when is their best energy? When is their worst energy? And then I can take all of that information and correlate it with the lab findings, the lab testing results that I do, and could kind of then, when I sit down with my client and they've done all the intake form, I've looked at the lab data, correlated those two, and kind of I can then sit down with them and tell them a story of how their body has gotten to this point. What is stress causing? How is stress in their life expressing itself? And sometimes people say, oh, I have no stress. Everything's great.
Right.
And then I can again explain, well, actually, what's going on is stress is causing these problems. Even though your doctor says your labs look good. Everything's normal. Everything's good. You're healthy.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to this because I do want to dive into how you help people, what you're seeing is working, what you would like to see work better. But I think I do want to dive into, I know you had your own health problems. So we talked about your kids a lot and how you learned to deal with them in that manner. But you were at a point where you're getting seizures, ended up in the hospital, and you had no memory. Obviously a very scary moment. I'm sure a lot went through your head in terms of how, what just happened? Is this reversible? What, why don't I remember things? And then maybe even more recently, so you just went through menopause, we talked about before recording, which was another, different type of experience, I'm sure. Walk me through how you thought about yourself. And I know the recent menopause experience, you're a seasoned practitioner now, so there's going to be a different flow, but like what were some of the similarities when you had the seizures and how you took your health to the level that you were like, okay, now I'm finally healthy and then maybe some of the differences too that you thought before and don't think so anymore.
Got it. So yeah, my approach to it was pretty astonishing to just wake up one day and have 2 grand mal seizures back to back out of nowhere. I was maybe 32, 33 years old. And but I knew what it was from. It was stress from taking care of my child and being sleep deprived for over 6 months. So my body had been stuck in that mode. Even though he was better and sleeping through the night, I was still stuck in the non-sleeping and anxiety. And of course, the doctor tells you that's normal. You're a new mom.
Right.
And I could not find any help. I could not find any help for the life of me. And so again, I felt like I have to do this myself. I have to figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I go to my neurologist, and he just told me to, make sure I get 8 hours of sleep. And he didn't have many answers for me except, take your drugs.
Yeah.
And, but what I really wanted to know is like, are there certain bacteria that are found, with people with epilepsy in their gut? What are some stress management strategies that I can start doing? And I knew that I could be proactive, but he just did not have any resources. And now I feel like I can potentially get rid of that diagnosis with the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that like a huge turning point in your
Because
career
I had,
and what you were thinking of doing?
you think you get a diagnosis and you think that's it. That's going to be it for the rest of my life. But the more I dug in and the research and dug into the lab testings, like it just became crystal clear. Oh, this is my roadmap on the things that I need to focus on for my health. And I believe with, working with my neurologists, I can get to a point where we can start weaning off and have a plan. And that is huge. That's what I hope to give to my clients. And what I see in my practice is when they have an action plan or roadmap, they feel peace. The stress, they're like, they don't have to be on Googling and researching and chasing, this health trend or this, supplement. Or whatever fad diet is coming up, they have a plan, and you just take it step by step, and it just brings so much peace of mind. So I was finally able to do that for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which is a really nice tie into, let's dive into some of the things that you're doing today with clients. Obviously, a successful practice. Lots of people are working with you, getting really good results. Maybe the best place to start is you have this Venn diagram of bio-individual needs, lifestyle, nutrients, and enjoyment. A, how did you come up with those four things needing to be tied together to achieve ultimate health? B, do you feel like all of those are necessary to get there? And C, do people have to enjoy it or else they don't do it?
Great question. But yeah, I believe the people who get the best results are working on all of the things. But again, taking baby steps, the last thing I want to do is add more stress or overwhelm.
Yeah.
And actually, the clients who take on too much and they've eventually like, it's all or nothing mentality, right? And so my clients who have the best results take little baby steps and have strong habits that they just stack them up. And I forgot part of your question.
Sorry, I'll repeat. Basically, by individual needs, lifestyle, nutrients, and enjoyment. How did you come up with a Venn diagram of those four things coming together?
I don't think that's my Venn diagram. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember having
Gotcha.
that anywhere.
Well, anyway, it's like maybe the better question then is how do we, what is your version of getting somebody healthy? What's your process?
Yeah.
And is there lots of similarities you see in clients where it's like, okay, everyone goes through this, or is it very much like you were saying, it's extremely individual. We have to kind of dig through, like somebody might be struggling with gut issues. Somebody might be more stressed. Somebody might what's your process in discovery?
Yeah, my process is to definitely look for someone who's willing to, be a lot more proactive. They're responsible. I'm there as a guide. But they're at the end of the day, they're the ones taking the action, choosing what to put in their food to put in their mouth. And I really start with mindset. That's so important. That's one of the first thing starting point is you have to have be able to trust your body, believe that your body is designed to heal. That's super important. I think that's often overlooked. because it's not just, about the lab markers being in range, because if you still don't feel good, that's what matters to me.
Right.
What matters to me is that you're receiving the results that you came here for, not what the labs say. They're always the priority. And so definitely starting with mindset. Diet is also my second focus. That's the second step that we really do a deep dive in, as well as sleep management, making sure quality sleep, exercise, fitness. My biggest thing is, especially for women, we need muscle, especially to make that transition into menopause. If you have some good lean muscle, you're on a great start for that journey, as well as some stress management. And one of the things I enjoy most is helping people figure out what's the ideal tools to have in their toolkit. That's a super fun process for me, as well as supplementation. And again, that's super personalized. We like to have the focus on food first, and supplementation secondary.
Awesome. I want to go back to the first point you made, which was you have to have a great mindset to do anything, because without that, like, why would you, like, basically, if you don't believe you can get better, then you're just going to self-sabotage. And I'm paraphrasing what you're saying, but that's the essence. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Right.
What are the biggest burdens of people getting to that place?
Yeah.
What do
People
you see?
not feeling worthy. A lot of women feel, especially if they're at home with the kids, they feel like they're not bringing in income, so then they can't, spend too much on their own health. So people have to be willing to prioritize their own health, and that could be hard for some of us moms sometimes. And feeling worthy, feeling like they can heal, and being able to trust their body.
Do you feel like that's a function of others telling them that they can't?
Oh, yeah.
Versus, or is it more that their upbringing or something in their life that they couldn't get past made them feel that way? Or do you think it's a lot of the combination?
It's definitely a combination, if it's their upbringing, their family structure, their family unit,
Yeah.
and society in general.
Awesome. Okay, let's dive into some of the things that are working. I'd love to understand. I know you run labs, for example, you mentioned. Can you talk to us about some of the technology that you're using in your practice that you're excited about, that's been working really well, and that's helping either the patients or you get results faster or better?
Yes. My clients, like I need to see 50% improvement in at least one symptom to start within the first 3-4 weeks. A lot of them love losing 5 to 7 pounds on average within the first 4 to 6 weeks, just because we're reducing it. We're working on inflammation. They're not really changing much, just finding the best foods and eliminating the wrong foods. So they're not even really, on a restrictive diet or anything. They're just, we're specifically focusing on lowering inflammation, which is the main contributor and driver of disease. And so, I said sleep, brain fog and memory, focus, concentration. That also I expect to see a huge improvement within 3 to 4 weeks.
Gotcha. And are you using technology to help you, like, outside of labs? Is there other things that, it could be apps, it could be ways that you're tracking the progress, it could be
People love the wearables.
Yeah.
So I'm able to look at all the data and integrate that in addition to the functional labs, see real time what's working, what's not working, and also maybe some things that we're missing that the labs didn't, can't catch. And as well as another device called an oligoscan. And, people come to me asking me, oh, I want to know what my nutrient deficiencies are.
Right.
And sometimes there's excess. I'm an example of that.
Yeah.
This Oligoscan measures minerals and heavy metal toxicity. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to look into more. And many practitioners and physicians, that's not even on their radar, is because this is very upstream that are contributors to health and causing imbalances in the body, especially for women and hormonal health. And so Oligoscan is great. Get results in 2 minutes. Yeah. And definitely use lots of apps. For meditation, I think it helps people be more compliant, be accountable, and, with the reminders and stuff, so they can easily integrate that into their day.
Awesome. Very cool. Last thing before we wrap up. In an ever-evolving world and with your approach, where do you see healthcare going? How do you see it adopting? How do you feel like you're adopting? I'd love for you to kind of and maybe give your opinion on that.
Yeah, so I feel like the space of functional medicine and like holistic healthcare, where I see the future is being able to, not just have everything in balance or your levels normal, but going beyond that to optimize. And with that, it's going to be, longevity medicine. Why be normal? Why not be optimized, right?
Right.
And especially for us women who, on average, live 6 years longer than men, but yet we spend more time in the, last third of our life not feeling so great, having diagnoses, just poor energy, poor quality of life.
Yeah.
So what good is it for us to have a longer lifespan, but we're in poor health? And that's where I feel like women can have the advantage, where women can benefit the most out of longevity medicine, and where women should be leading the way. And I think a key to that too is hormones. Like that's part of our sweet sauce that allows us to have a longer life. Research is still hashing that out, but that's kind of where I feel it's coming from. And I'm super excited about how women can lead the way in longevity medicine.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, for your insights, for sharing your stories. I'm sure many people can relate, especially with kids. Having those situations is scary. How can people connect with you, check out your content, see what you're all about? Let us know.
Yeah. I'm mostly on Instagram, solgarcia.health. And I love doing IG Lives. I usually love partnering with fellow colleagues. That way you can get, kind of different balanced perspective on things. And I'll be starting a YouTube channel. That's my next venture. And I'm based in Southern California, so people can see me in person, as well as I work with clients virtually.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Boris.